In today's show, we have another multi-topic episode. It is adult themed because we discuss, is having an orgasm proof of consent? And then we also talk about, should we criminalize cuck-holding?
And now, the TNT Talk Show, daring to go where other podcasts fear to tread.
Hello, I'm Tony Fasulo and I share the stage with my esteemed friend and colleague Tayo Boya. Tayo, hello my friend once again. I hope you're keeping safe and well.
Yeah, what the hell, Tony? What you gonna do, eh?
Am I going to be brave enough? Am I going to do it?
I have no
Ask you
idea.
to say hi to our audience.
It's up to you, to be honest.
Are you going to say hi to our audience? Come on.
Oh, what the hell? Hello, audience. Okay,
Yes.
so listen.
Oh God.
Why? Let me ask you this: why do men chase women? Actually, a woman asked me this. Said, why do men chase women that have no intention of marrying?
I don't know. I think it's just lust, is it, or what?
I said, I think my answer was better than that. I said, it's for the same reason that dogs chase cars that have no intention of driving.
Good grief.
She wasn't impressed either.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Anyway, let's move on with the show. Now, before we start on our topic, I do want to remind our listeners and viewers out there, if you like our show, or even if you just want to comment about it, if you like the direction that we go down, please, whatever platform you're on, be it the big ones out there, or even just the smaller ones that are not as popular, just leave comments on there. Tell us what you think of the episode itself. Tell us what you think of us generally. Whether they're good or bad comments, we'll appreciate them and deal with them. I know most of the bad ones might go Tayo's way, but hey, he's thick-skinned. No, just kidding. Honestly, just put down whatever you feel. Do you like the content? Do you like what we're talking about, etc.? So we can do more of the same. But other than that, we'll now get on with the show. And today we've got, hopefully, time permitting, of course, another multi-topic episode. And today we start things off with a real strange one, which again, Tayo's picked for today. And it is having an orgasm proof of consent? Now, Tayo, why did you come up with this one?
I came across this on a YouTube video, which is a channel that I loosely follow that deals with sort of controversial court cases and things like that. And this is an actual case in the US where there was this argument that I think it was the defense counsel was saying that there was no case for rape because the woman herself, the victim, so-called alleged, if you like, victim, actually stated that she achieved orgasm during the so-called rape. Now, this wasn't a case of a stranger meeting someone and dragging them into the bushes and something like that. This is a more complicated case where you could almost argue it was like a buyer's remorse that after the event, you know, they met up in a club, both parties were drunk, went
So
back.
does she know him? You said.
Well,
she
they
didn't.
met up at a nightclub or something. So afterwards, after the morning after, that sort of thing, it was she at some point decided that she didn't give her full consent. She wasn't able to give full consent due to intoxication. So and foundationally, that was the case for the rape accusation, and that's what in the MGTOW community, we call like buyer's remorse. That's just to say that it seems to be okay at the time, and then the following morning, or even a couple of weeks later, they decide, no, I was drunk. I didn't really mean for you to have sexual intercourse with me. But the defense was that, hang on, you had a nice time and all this, and lucky. I mean, one of the good things about it is that she didn't disagree. She didn't say no, I didn't. She was like, yeah, I did, but it's natural as an argument was that it was part of that. It is part of it's a natural reaction to having sexual intercourse, or maybe I'm misrepresenting her case a little bit, but it was, so to speak, that if you press the right buttons, you will get that reaction, whether the person wants you to or not. Do you see what I mean? So in other words, that if the counter argument, or whatever, was that for a man, you could be stimulated whilst not wanting is stimulated, that the body has its own reactions, and you are a displeased observer, so to speak, and that's what she was claiming.
Actually, there's actually truth in that. So it's not all a poo-poo. There is actually truth, because there are certain people that can, what's the word I'm looking for? Can have forced orgasms. So what that means is they're not necessarily fully committed to whatever's going on, but if they're touched or stimulated in a certain way, then they can still reach orgasm despite being reciprocally, what's the word I'm looking for, engaged in whatever the act is happening. Because I give you an example, there are reported cases now where people are into bondage and things like that. So the stimulation and the excitement element is that you're tied up and you're bound, and one of the partners is acting where you cannot control the situation. Now you're willingly consenting to this, well, those people are. But what happens is midway through, they're getting so aroused it now becomes painful, and they wanted to stop, and they've orgasmed several times even, and it becomes too sensitive, it becomes really uncomfortable. They're telling the partner to stop, but the partner's not heeding that. So now what happens? It then becomes
rearrange your safe word, I think, is what
possibly, but when does stop mean?
Sorry, yeah.
When does
don't
stop?
Don't make your safe word stop.
No, but indeed,
stop.
Yeah, but in that case, they clearly erred. But there are examples of that. So there we have.
It's not anecdotal. I mean, I got some kind of. Really?
Yeah.
First of
absolutely.
all, the first act of bondage, isn't that consensual? I mean, this is not a. I assume it's
okay,
not a
but
situation.
At what point does it? No matter what the consequences are, it's still okay. Just because you agree to the instigation of it, can you not then discover as you're progressing that actually I don't like this? This is actually not what I thought it would be. You've still got a right as a human being to say.
Don't put words into your mouth. You asked the question, then you can't answer the question.
But that was a rhetorical question. I'm just trying to explain the situation.
Well, I don't like it to be rhetorical, because no, there's once you signed up to bondage, I mean, you're off the planet, off the reservation, man.
Well, okay, maybe that doesn't need to be bondage. Maybe it could be just a consensual couple initially, and the female, because it's more the female than the man, because the man. Okay, no, actually, let's turn that around. In actual fact, there are occasions where when a man is really aroused and he wants to go ahead with it, and then all of a sudden something spooks him, literally at the last minute, it would still continue. It wouldn't just drop away immediately. Yes, there'll be some drop off, but he would still be in a situation. I mean, argument. I don't know what I'm gonna use as an example here, but
I thought of a very.
Go on, then. What are you going to say as an example?
I thought of a terrible one. Okay.
I know this is an adult-themed episode, but
that would be because
let's keep it within the bounds.
Well, look, it's ridiculous because I think the scenario I've got in my head is somewhat ridiculous, and I don't even know if you can even argue. It's just okay. So imagine there's been a certain degree of miscommunication. Okay.
Okay.
The gentleman thinks that it's going to be an enjoyable threesome with the woman and another partner, and he only discovers, to his surprise and some degree of horror and indignation, that the third person is the lady's husband.
Okay.
And at the point of just before orgasm, the lady's husband is, shall we say, troubling him from behind.
Yeah. Trying to elicit penetrative sex without his say-so.
So at that point, you've got interesting options.
Indeed. And that has happened.
Surely jumping off and discontinuing is, I mean, it's got to be a pretty rugged man who's like, okay, I'll just take one for the team and finish this off. far more rugged than I can imagine myself or anybody I know being. So, again, would it really go through? I mean, it's anecdotally in your head, you can see it. But I'm asking the question, and I did try to track down, but nowadays we have been so mollycoddled by the system that I couldn't find. I thought that I was going to try to bring up during this episode what I seem to remember, that there were so-called doctors, I think they were actually lunatics, working for the Nazis, who tried experiments along this to look into this matter with family members in the Nazi death camps.
Okay.
Who wanted to know if, a woman and her son, things like this, is the normal social
boundaries.
Boundaries. I was looking for a different word. Boundaries will work fine. The normal social boundaries. Could you overcome that and try to? And it was just like just a mental thing, just really silly and evil and unnecessary experimentation. But I seem to remember that they did it. And I wanted to find the papers, but I can't find them, even though I searched for them.
There is an element of animalistic within all of us, and the sexual part of our brain is at the reactionary end. Let's put it that way. It's not at the thinking part of the brain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, for men, I'm told by several women in strange conversations that they have more. I think there's a thing that we say in MGTOW, okay, or there's a red pill maybe rather than a MGTOW thing, which is that it is better to stimulate a woman's mind than her body. That the body will follow if you can titillate her mind, the body will follow. It's not like a man. A man is quite functional, visual,
Functional.
We see,
visual,
we want,
yeah.
Boom, we're off and away. But with a woman, the right kind of it was red pill, not MGTOW. The right kind of input, if you like, to titillate the mind, like flirting. Maybe that's why women enjoy a person who has good flirting technique. And if you don't have that, you're kind of like on the back foot.
Indeed, but there is a caveat to that.
Mm.
women will only flirt with someone who they actually find attractive visually. If they can't see the person, then that's different. But if they can, that still presides over the flirtatious part. It takes a lot more for someone who they don't find attractive to win them over. So regardless of that statement, oh yeah, you can woo a woman by her mind, yes, there is elements of that, but you've got to be really, really good and say all the right things and back it up with other means as well
Mm.
in order to win a woman over. There is still physical attraction there, even some that's required in order for that to be true. A man is more functional, granted. They don't have the same, limitation. That's why it's not a limitation. A same, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't have the same. They
Limitation
don't need
works
the
for me.
stimulation. No, they
Oh
don't need the
yeah.
same
So what do you
stimulation.
need all that for? Got boobs? Check. Got ass? Check. All right. Hey, how you doing? Hey, easy to please.
We're very
And can you make a
basic, aren't we?
sandwich?
That says
Ooh.
primitive and basic, isn't it? It's an animalistic function almost. It's a reproducing function rather
Yeah.
than,
Well,
well,
you know what? I mean, the point is this website, the sorry, not website, the YouTube channel, they deal with controversies and everything, and they're not really good with coming back and telling us weeks afterwards what actually happened, or it's an ongoing case. I wouldn't have thought so. It was American. I think in America, they tend to actually sort of get through their court cases. It's not adjourned, over and over and over for such a long time. So I went back to have a look, and it was just the controversy of the actual case, and they didn't come back and say, well, this is what happened.
yeah, they don't
What
finish
what
it
did
off.
the court say in the end? And it's complicated by the fact that there's this thing about this intoxication and whether a woman can give consent. Now this was America. I know that in Canada, basically, a woman. I mean, I don't know, but Canadians where they're going to now, I don't even know if a woman can give consent. To be honest, it
We
seems as
touched
if
on this briefly in a previous show, did we
yeah,
not?
it seems as if a woman in Canada can change her mind at any time, and that's it. It's kind
No,
of really peculiar.
I'm sure it's not quite
Like I said, it
as
seems.
that comes across. That seems a bit extreme.
It
But
does seem a bit extreme. It's just like,
it does.
what the
But they're
heck?
going to talk about the edge cases here. Then you're going to have weird situations. I mean, as a law, which is more generic, which is supposed to apply for the whole population, the laws have to be a little bit more straightforward. And you do have boundaries, of course you do, but they're not going to be that specific, and it's the interpretation of that law by the lawyers that make the legal system work. So the laws themselves could be quite not as absolute as we're making out, but it's the interpretation of those laws applied to certain situations determine the outcome. And you've got to take in all the situations in the scenario. Like in this case, what have we seen? The one that you've quoted, where it's showing that this woman was inebriated
Hmm.
but was consensual at the time, had sex with the guy, and then following morning woke up and realized that actually, was she raped? Was she in a position to actually give consent?
Hmm.
And that's not cut and dry, because you don't know the conversation. We were not there. You're hearing two different sides. You're hearing if there were witnesses, if other people saw her state, saw his state. We don't have any of that information. We just get the report that happens to be on the internet. And that, without being present in the room, in the courtroom, when this was all discussed and gone through, we will never get the full picture. We can only try and piece the picture together based on the information that's been provided third hand. So I'm always a bit wary of these examples that show up that seem to indicate that the law from above is either draconian, is wrong, is not correct, like we've stated here. But when we look at when we scrape underneath the layers and see the real truth of what the law actually says, is it as black and white as we think?
Well, probably. Here is a looking for it online rather than I was trying that website. First of all, there's a University of Richmond. University of Richmond. Richmond's America, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it. Looking at the search results on Google for does orgasm negate rape, and it does this university paper, and it's a modern American university, so you got to take anything they say with a certain amount of salt. It says, and I'll read this out. It says, myth: if a person has an orgasm, that then they were not actually sexually assaulted. And then it says, fact: orgasm does not mean that someone enjoyed sex. That's in quotation marks, the word enjoyed, or that they wanted it. Orgasm can be a natural biological function that someone can't control.
That's true.
Which is basically what we are saying.
Yeah.
Now, I'd love to see the paper on this, but I can't because it's hidden behind either as a paywall or some kind of weird thing. It's but it's like I said to our viewers and listeners, it's University of Richmond. So if you type in University of Richmond and what was the does orgasm negate rape, you'll get the article, and it'd be interesting to see how they've arrived at that conclusion. A better result based on our discussion comes from our government. What's it?
UK.
Gov.uk. Yeah, UK government, and it says rape and sexual offences, tackling rape myths and stereotypes. And here it says it deals with this orgasm. Well, should deal with the orgasm thing, but where is this? It doesn't actually mention the word orgasm on the page, which is kind of weird, because how else? Why did it then?
Okay. Okay.
But it does come as a myth. Some myths is that rape is always violent, and so that's false.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Well, it already leads towards this thing, doesn't it? Because it's if rape is not always violent, which by the way I thought it was until I just read it now on the screen. If it's not always violent, then it does tend to lead towards the thing that you can have a sort of non-violent rape. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
like for instance, if someone is too drunk, say for instance you have a couple like you've already
she's passed
said,
out, for instance.
Yeah, she's passed out. Then she would almost passed out, and yeah, she could
I tell you what,
she could have sex very gently. I know that this is in my youth. I remember being at a party, hearing that there was again, not seeing it firsthand, but we heard that there was a girl and a boy in another room, both inebriated. They ended up having sex, and she doesn't remember it. But she never called it rape. She just didn't remember it. So,
well, you should have said what's that man's name? The former Black American star, television star, who got into big trouble because he was giving all these women roofies and knocking them out.
Oh, the one who was he was called the father of America, Bill Crosby. Yeah, Bill Crosby. Yeah.
So obviously, when I said I thought all rape was violent, you could just have said Bill Crosby because obviously there's no violence. These guys were knocked out. They just
exactly. It's the same in some abusive relationships where if the man is abusive to the partner will not say no, because if fear of the repercussions. So she'll agree.
Man, if one partner is abusive to the other, let's not get.
Well, no. In okay, let's look at the scenario. I'm not saying it doesn't happen both ways, but in the majority of the cases, the
Mm.
abuse tends to be male towards female. That is
But
the
let's not
stats.
institutionalize that and say, you know, man. Let's
No,
say,
no, no. But
let's make it.
we're framing it now. Yeah, the majority, unfortunately, is men. But yes, to equalify this, if that's a word,
Mm-hmm.
it does happen the other way around. Of course, it does. But in a violent relationship, it's harder for a female to force a man to have sex than it is the other way round. So, although there are on some edge cases where that has happened.
Don't forget, it doesn't have to be penetrative sex to be
No,
rape.
it doesn't. It doesn't at all.
Right.
Where,
So,
yeah, I am aware of a case where a female actually abused her very passive and submissive husband to all sorts of sexual
yeah.
things in front of her friends.
Mm.
So yes, that wasn't very nice. So yes, like I said, it can happen the other way too. But the point is, on both the scenarios that I was going to discuss, both ended up in orgasm.
Oh,
But the humiliation and the fear in the two cases was not consensual. Do you see what I mean? It was because they were fearful of the repercussions, so they went ahead with it
can I
anyway.
put on my I suppose I'm going to get off. I'm going to get a lot of abuse for what I'm going to say now. Can I put on my African hats for a second? Okay.
Okay.
So I can just imagine this conversation in Nigeria, which is the part of Africa with which I am, of course, familiar. And I think in Nigeria, we would tend to say, "Yes, madam, did you enjoy it? Did it hook you? Did it hook you?" That's actually pidgin English now. It's
Okay.
pidgin English for basically, did you come? All right.
Okay.
The thing hook you, then yeah, everyone in court is going to be, yeah.
But
You
is
know,
it
the
all
nicety,
male? Is it all a male court?
the niceties. I think everybody, man, woman, in my honest opinion, honestly, I think everyone, men, women, is just equally going to be, yeah. You know, because the niceties are very intellectual. They're very kind of like Western, overthinking the thing, you know, to the point where you said, you know, this is the husband and blah blah blah. It's just like, yeah, you know, I just don't kind of buy it, man, because at some point you just say like, no, I'm not involved. I don't like this. I'm not involved. How is it that I am involved, and then when I finish, I'm suddenly saying that it's rape? It just this is where I'm coming from. It
I
just
think the word rape does cover too many areas.
yeah.
Where we say, like you said,
Sexual
there's two
molestation,
extreme.
I'd be very happy
Yeah,
with.
that. Yeah, I
You know,
mean,
which
it's
is also a
because it's
crime, by the way. It doesn't
yeah,
have
it's
to
still
be
a
full.
crime. It's still a crime.
Doesn't have to be a full rape. I mean, you still go to prison, don't you, for sexual harassment? I think. I
I
don't know if
think
it's
you
as
do, but
long
the
as.
sentence is nowhere near as
Yeah,
long
don't you
as
still get
rape.
a record for sex as a sex criminal?
Yeah, you do. You do.
So
So
it's
you are
pretty blooming
still.
serious, man. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm going to say, if we, so I think if we said sexual harassment, do you know what? Arguments finished. She came, she didn't come. He came, he didn't come. All this, it's still sexual harassment. Do you see what I'm saying?
I think
But
the term,
rape,
maybe the term, you were right
rape
when you
is
first started, actually, where you were under the impression that the word rape meant violent associated to sex.
precisely.
Maybe the word has changed over
Ah,
time,
well,
and now it's being used as for any form of sexual
no,
misbehavior.
for so many forms of sexual misbehavior. And by the way, that website I was talking about is the government UK. It's CPS, which I've just worked out means
Crown
criminal
Prosecution
crown
Service.
crown prosecution service.
Yeah.
So it's crownprosecutionservice.gov.uk, legal guidance on rape. Okay, so quite easy to find,
Okay.
and it's a very long. There's a lot of material in there, which some of which is quite surprising, and I wish we had time to actually sort of if I had come across this, we may have spoken about rape in the modern era, because there's a lot of things here I'm looking at which are quite surprising to me. Some less so now, because in the old days, I think in the 60s, I don't know when this changed. A husband could not rape
A
a wife,
wife. That's right.
but that changed. I think it says here as of 3rd of November 1994. So up until the 3rd of November 1994, a husband could not rape a wife, and I still believe that, technically speaking, I don't see why that would be rape anyway.
Well,
Although it's moving away from what we're
I
talking
think
about.
again, maybe the word has changed slightly then. Maybe, as I said, the first definition of rape, I don't know. I believe it's just my opinion.
I've just answered myself. Maybe the husband and wife are estranged.
Yes, exactly. And then that would be rape. So they're not
So,
divorced,
mm,
unfortunately, due to financial circumstances, still in the same household. And then, yes, that could happen.
mm.
So
Yeah,
the law,
I just answered myself.
you did, yeah. So the
Yeah.
law would have changed, could have changed, and would have made a big difference when it changed. But has that now, the word rape, has that now grown to encompass so many other sexually related incidents?
Well, there are videos on YouTube, some of this manosphere channels, which are very, very well. They're not humorous for the person involved, but to us, the viewer, it's humorous. Where women shout rape under the weirdest situations, such as someone not allowing them to do something, and then they shout rape.
Really?
Yeah, really. I mean, it's on video.
See
This
that
is,
that's abusing and abusing, is that the word? No. Abusing
yeah,
and
abusing.
diluting the power of the word. Because if you hear in the street, you hear help rape, you'd want to go and help whoever's shouting that. But if people are now starting to dilute the word and use it for stupidness,
Mm.
then people won't go to anybody's
That
aid
that is a
because
very good point, and people have pointed it out that that is a very serious point. And like you say, it dilutes the power of the word. It's this is in Indonesia, I believe it was, where well, okay, she settled down quite quickly, but she was in the back of the car, and I think it was a common misunderstanding. Truly, it was an Uber car, and she knows where she wants to go, but doesn't remember how she gets there. But she goes quite often,
okay,
right? But she doesn't remember street by street. This way, this is that way. And the Uber driver asks, well, whatever. I don't think it's Uber, it's whatever they're using
yeah, yeah,
in the equivalent. He says, "Well, I don't know the way. I'm going to use my and the equivalent of Waze or whatever, sat
yeah,
nav. I'm going
yeah,
to use
yeah.
my sat nav, okay?" And then she's looking out the window and say, "Where is this? I don't recognize this place." And he's trying to explain to her, "Yeah, don't you remember I told you that I was going to, I'm following
Use my
the
sat nav because I
sat
don't know
nav."
where the destination is. Yeah,
And she panics. She brings out, she gets her phone out. She does the video. She starts video, and then she's shouting and shrieking, rape, kidnap and rape. And it's like he's got his. Fortunately for him, he's got his own video going.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
For this very reason, is for his own personal
His own
security.
personal, yeah, yeah,
He's got it going. He says, what are you talking about? What are you talking about?"
yeah.
And apparently, in Indonesia, which is where I think this took place, kidnapping is life imprisonment if you're caught. So it is not, when somebody says kidnapping, it's like, yay, it's, and he was going to drive to a police station. That was his intention, but they found a police officer on the way there, and he stopped
He
the
stopped.
police officer and got it sorted out. But that's what she was shouting and shrieking. Now, if he hadn't had a video of this incident, well, what might have happened?
See, that's wrongly accusing. But although it'd have to be an edge case, and it would have to be, I mean, if the authorities are just not listening to the evidence and siding with one of the parties immediately, then
Sometimes
that's a
happens.
corrupt
Yeah,
legal
well, it
system.
happens more often than we
Well,
want to agree.
if you hope that the legal system is robust enough to deal with these sort of nuances, especially when there's no clear evidence of kidnapping.
Let me see if I can help you with that because, well, it's not the legal system. This is a funny situation. In American campuses,
Yeah.
if you get accused of rape, you have very little recourse to any system of judgment that requires evidence.
That just see that again. I'm struggling to actually believe and accept. I do not believe that, even as we've discussed in the past, there's some quirks about the American system. Even their system is not degraded to the point where they're literally not looking at evidence and they're just passing laws like a tin pot regime that says you're convicted without hearing the actual story and the evidence from both sides. I find that staggering, and if I'm honest, I don't actually believe it.
Excellent.
But anyway,
let's try to get you the actual channel. How's that?
okay. But okay.
I
mean, I'm mindful of the time while we're looking for
I'll give everyone the name of the channel.
Yeah.
And then they can go and have a look-see.
Okay. Is this channel just somebody's pet project, or is this an official?
No, these are 2 or 3 serious. It's called Not on Record Podcast. That's the name of the channel.
Right.
And these are legal people who sit down and discuss. I mean, there's 2 who are always there, like the hosts, like us, and they sometimes have guests on and things, and they always talk about these legal things.
I see.
Yeah, and there, if I think what we'll do is we'll circle back to this issue again when I can select the cases that you say you don't believe, and I can present it.
Well, I mean, I find it staggering. Let's put it that way. And if the justice system is that what's the word I'm looking for?
Broken.
Yeah, simply, if it's that broken, then there's a real problem. I mean, for everyone. So you have to sort of look at this and think, what? They're not checking the evidence? They're taking one person's word against another without the evidence? I mean, that's insane.
You remember Believe All Women?
I beg your pardon?
Don't you remember the campaign, Believe All Women?
I don't remember this campaign.
Wow, this was about 2 or 3 years ago, because we were still Toastmasters at the time. And I actually gave a speech in our Toastmasters club, and I said, how can you believe all women? Even, you don't seem to remember that.
No.
This was in the aftermath of the Me Too movement.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, there was this believe all women, that you should just believe women. That the problem with Me Too was that we didn't believe women, and we tended not to believe.
I think you've got to also look at the slogans that people use. The slogans don't actually sum up. They're a condensed form, a catchy phrase that represents the underlying theme of what they're representing.
Mm-hmm.
So they can't make it a catchy. They can't make the theme that's supposed to be catchy, that's on everyone's lips, the actual true meaning. So Me Too was catchy. It didn't represent, the wording itself didn't represent what they were trying to stand for. And this term you've just referred to,
believe all women.
Believe all women. That the real slogan underneath it all, believe all women, because they are telling the truth most of the time. Yeah, that could be what it is. It's like Black Lives Matter. That term didn't encompass what the true meaning of what they were trying to represent was. It was just a shortened version to make it stick in people's minds. So you got to also scratch the surface and see what they're doing behind the scenes. So slogans for me are just to draw people in and give people something to think about, but you need to look at what's being represented to fully understand what they're standing.
That's you, and not everyone else. And
no, indeed, you're right.
I just sent you a picture of. On your WhatsApp thing.
Okay.
A picture of some people who disagree, because it was actually a thing. It was, some people were taking it and using it to virtue signal, and that
See, was this is the problem. This is the problem.
That was the cause of the problem. That is, so it doesn't. Your point is wrong. Is that there are people who take these slogans and take them to heart
They
and use them
do.
to
They
purchase,
do. The
and
ignorant,
that's why
unfortunately, I'm
you
going to
get these.
say it, ignorant people that take them on face value. That's
Yeah,
not what they mean.
yeah, but
But
it's
if
still
you do and you're
dangerous, isn't
caught
it?
along, it is dangerous, and I agree with you.
So
But they've got to use some level of critical thinking. Look at it and go, what are they representing?
I agree with you, but unfortunately they didn't, and that's why. So I think we have another show that we should probably come
Yeah,
back and have
we
a
can
look at this.
probably have a look at that. But I'm
At some
mindful
point.
of the time here because we've
Yep.
discussed this particular topic quite well. What's your conclusion then? Is having an orgasm proof of consent?
Hmm. It's more. It's grayer than I would
Greyer!
like. Yeah.
Hooray! Hooray! You finally admitted to
Because
grey.
it
It's not
depends.
always black
I'm
and
not
white.
happy with. I'm not happy with the meaning of the word rape there, and consent and all that sort of thing. It's grayer. It's not. It's not exactly straightforward.
No, not at all. And hence my stance is it isn't consent just by having an orgasm because there are definite examples of people under coercion still orgasming, but that doesn't mean they were there willingly, and that's the problem. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on. We've got time for another topic. And this is another one of yours. I mean, the theme of today's show is an adult theme, so this is an interesting one. And this is, should we criminalize cuckoo cuck-holding?
No, kill them all. This is a black and white one for me.
First off, a lot of our listeners and viewers may be scratching their head going, what the heck does that mean? So can you first explain what both terms mean? Yeah, can you explain what both terms
Okay,
mean
well, a
together?
cuckold is and specifically, I believe it's a man. I don't think a woman can be a cuckold. That's actually making sense. It's
That's
a cuck.
actually, there's a separate word for a female.
Right. What
But
is it? I
similar.
don't know it.
I don't know what it is off my head, but there's a, yeah, it's, oh dear.
I
It's
wouldn't have
got a
thought.
cook S or something, a cook
Oh, a
S.
cuck is a male chicken.
I know, but
So a
it's a
cuckold,
cookess. It's
so
something weird. It's a
cuckold someone is anyway, specifically a cuckold is specifically for men, whatever the female is, specifically for men, and it is to have is for the spouse, the wife, or the you want to say partner, whatever, but I say wife or this spouse to have sexual relations with another man with her husband's knowledge. That's basically cuckolding.
isn't it consent, not just knowledge?
Yeah, okay, consent and knowledge, yes, if you like.
Yeah,
Consent and knowledge, yes,
yeah.
that's fine. Well, I think if you know about it and you're not sort of shooting them both, then it should be some elements of consent there, okay?
Okay.
But to spell it out in black and white with another man, with the husband's consent.
Yeah.
Now, cuckoo cuckolding doesn't involve consent, though, does it? It is. It
No.
involves like a cuckoo. What the cuckoo is a bird
Yep.
that places its eggs in the nests of other birds,
Yep.
and then because they're nasty like that, the cookie egg hatches first, and it's bigger and stronger than
The
the
remaining
the
eggs, yeah.
fledgling, yeah, the core fledglings, I think, of
Hmm.
the other birds, and it kills them and throws them out of the nest.
Yeah.
So eventually, this what happens is that cuckoos take over the nests of other birds and are reared. They sort of have this very nasty, basically evil technique
Awful birds.
of having other birds raise their own offspring because they can't be
Yes.
bothered, they can't be asked, and that's fantastic. I mean, you think evolution have thought of that come off it. It's ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. Anyway, it's that idea of you of leaving your offspring for someone else to raise. So a cuckoo cuckold
Yeah.
is when a man impregnates someone else's wife, and the husband raises the child or children, if they're twins or whatever, as if they were his own, in most cases without knowing, until something happens. Maybe, one of the children needs a donation or some kind of organ or something, and then they find out that, oh, I'm so sorry,
Not the biological
you're not the
father.
biological father. And that's the first time he's heard of it. But of course, he's paid all the school fees, medical bills in America, as I like to say, bills. I'm going to say that now.
So what I mean, the term that we're going to discuss, should we criminalize this?
Well,
Why should we criminalize it?
well, because there is so much money involved in the modern family court system when a woman has a child for you.
Okay.
And if she knows that it's not your child, but she goes to court and pretends that it is so that she can extract your wealth, then that is surely, just by common sense, number one, she's lied in court. Because this is not, there's an underlying factor that has to be pointed out, right?
Yeah.
That the woman has to know that she's cuckolded you, that she has cuckolded her partner,
husband. Yeah.
or even partner, because nowadays even partners are liable,
Okay.
in family court for their offspring.
Okay.
So if she knows it's not yours, but she's trying to pass it off as yours because you have the money, because she wants you to be the one paying because of, you got a better income and all
yeah.
then she's lied in court. And that alone should be a criminal case. But that at presently, the best you can hope for is perjury. And she might get something silly like 6 months suspended or something. But you still ended up paying all that money, and you might not get it back, by the way.
Okay.
Especially if you're a husband.
Yeah.
Right? And you were cuckolded in a state of matrimony. Are you aware that you still have to pay? Did you know that?
Of the children?
Yeah, you still have to pay.
Right. Here's a
Still your
question.
responsibility.
It's interesting what you're saying, okay? And hearing it on the surface sounds totally wrong and unfair, especially if the father isn't the biological father of the children.
Yeah, I'd rather go to prison.
Okay. What happens if it was a child that was adopted?
It's not cuckolding. It's not cuckolding.
Right.
Well, if the parents knew, but the father knew and wanted to adopt.
Right. Okay.
Where's the cuckolding in that?
Think of the children in all this. Okay. Look at the scenario. The children are unaware that the father isn't the father. They still think that the father is their father. Because to be a father doesn't necessarily just mean biological. You can be a father to a child in an adopted state. That child will then treat you as a biological father. It's the relationship that you have with the child that determines whether you're a father, not necessarily what your biology. Yes, in legal terms, you're the legal father of a child, but how you bring that child up is more important. So
I have one word answer for you.
Go on.
Consent.
Consent. Okay, that's right. The law was broken, and you're right.
With the adoption,
yeah,
there's consent.
Indeed.
And with a surrogate father,
yeah,
there's consent. But a cuckold, there is no consent.
Agreed. I'm not saying there hasn't been a misdemeanor here.
Yeah, so this idea that somehow you say, well, think of the children, it's got nothing to do with the children.
Well, it has.
No, it's got nothing to do with children. The man never consented. If he has consented, then you can say, well, think about the children.
Okay.
Because if he consented and then there's a divorce, then he can say, keep paying because you consented. And it's like you said, it's like an adoption.
Yeah.
It's what you're arguing about. Those are your kids.
Right.
But if he never gave his consent and he finds out that these are not his kids, and then he goes for a divorce because of that, because he wants his kid, he's entitled to keep his wealth and lavish them on his children.
Right.
Now, whoever she slept with, let her go and find that person and extract that person's wealth.
Absolutely. That person should pay their dues. However, so should he.
For what?
For what?
For being tricked.
For having the relationship with the children. He's their dad.
So he was tricked into having a relationship.
It doesn't matter. He's built 10, 20 years of a relationship with those children, thinking that they are his children.
Yeah,
that doesn't go away.
Well,
they're still his children. The children will probably treat him more like a father than the absent father.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's the facts of the matter. I mean, you're like going very hypothetical.
I don't know. I'm not talking about
the facts of the matter. Is the father, not the father, the tricked man.
Yep.
Wants nothing to do with them.
Wants nothing to do with them.
No, he's left. I can't exactly quote a particular case, but
I know the case. I know the case really well, actually.
So I don't know if it's the same case, but what I'm saying is, I can definitely understand why the man is going to say, "These are not my children. You tricked me," and rage. Yeah. It's like, what do you mean?
Oh, absolutely agree with you. He's got a right to be angry. Of course he has.
For the court to come along and say, "Yeah, but you're going to pay." It's like, I'm the victim, so I'm going to be victimized twice. I'm going to be victimized by the woman who did this to me, and I'm going to be victimized by the court system. By the way, that is taking away my wealth from me, so that I can't easily go out and get my own.
He didn't take his wealth away.
No,
he paid a percentage of his income towards the upkeep of the children.
For what reason? That's what I'm trying to say.
Because he still had the father relationship with the children.
It's as if you broke into my house and took my car away, and the car broke down somewhere, and then I still got to pay the AAA to go and service your car. Because
do you know what? If it's still registered to you, you still have to pay to get it removed. So yeah, there is an element.
No, I'm saying to get it back. But if the thief is still swanning around in my car, it's ridiculous to say that I should maintain. I should keep on paying the insurance.
You're talking about an inanimate object here.
No. I'm talking about the mere concept of I being the victim of a crime, and yet I am then put upon to help the person who victimized me to keep profiting from that. That goes against everything in the court system.
I totally
can't profit from a crime.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
So the children are her problem, not the
There's still
problem.
A bond there. The children still refer to.
It's in your head and in the children's head.
No.
And in the victim's head, it's not there because that's why he's left. So the victim.
No, he left because of the deceit, not because of the children.
Maybe you're thinking of what you're thinking of. Okay, he left because he's not happy with the situation. If he was happy with the situation, he would have stayed. And if he was happy with the situation, he would be paying the upkeep with nobody going to court and saying anything.
Well, do you know what? Yeah. He was, because of the shock factor, he actually did go back to court. Because he wanted to recoup some of the money that he put out. And he did get some of the money back.
No, some is wrong. You should have got all of the money back.
No.
Everything.
Because he still was a father to those children, and they still needed looking after. And as far as he was concerned...
What does that got to do with anything?
Hold on.
You keep on saying that. No, but you're actually annoying me. You keep on saying the children have a need. So the F what? Who cares?
So you don't care about
I don't freaking care,
family member's child.
Why should I freaking care? It's not my freaking family, dude. Why should I care? Why should I care? I'm asking you black and white. Why should I care?
Because being a human being means that you do
Stop being a human being, man.
You are still one, actually, the last time I looked at it.
I'm a freaking victim. And you can't tell me
you're only looking at the money side.
Because of your definition of what is being a human being, which to me is a wishy-washy nonsensicality, is nothing. This is hard facts of life, my friend. Nothing to do with wishy-washy human being. What are you talking about? I am a victim. I don't owe these kids anything.
Right.
Nothing.
He got money back. Yeah?
Everything back. Should have been 100%.
Get everything back.
And by the way, not only that, I don't see why he can't sue. Should we criminalize cuckolding? Yes, she should have been liable.
She was liable.
Serious.
She was liable, and she was made to pay a big chunk of it back. Not all of it.
That's his money. That's not liable for anything. That's his money.
Hold on. When he was with the children,
yeah.
believing they were his, and the children believed he was the dad, he willingly spent money on them
Yeah, of course.
on a belief.
Yeah.
He didn't begrudge that.
No.
No.
At that
So
point
why
in time,
should he be
didn't
given
realize
back that money? He
because
didn't begrudge it.
because he was deceived. It's criminal.
It doesn't matter.
It does.
He built the relationship with the children.
What does he build the relationship with? He built
You
a
not
relationship
have
with
children that you have a relationship
under
with.
false pretenses.
It doesn't
And
matter.
when he found to you, stop saying it doesn't matter. You're saying it doesn't matter. Doesn't make it true. If the guy acted the way I'm saying that the guy would act.
Okay, let me give a hypothetical scenario, yeah? Hypothetical here, just to see. Okay? Your daughter, you discover, is not your daughter.
Yeah. I've often wondered about her, to be honest.
Okay, so you would cut off all ties. Not that how old is she now? She's in her 20s, is she?
Yeah.
Right? You would cut off all those 20 years and go, oh my God, she's not my daughter. You had good moments there where she was looking at you as daddy and you'd be there for her. So what are you begrudging? You've built that relationship with her.
Yeah.
So what, you don't care?
No, I'm not saying that.
Well, there you go. And that's the same in this scenario.
I'm saying that if I did care, then under the laws that I'm proposing, that I would be able to take her mother to court and get back every single red cent that I have spent on her. That's what I'm saying.
So it's only the money that you're interested in.
Well, if that's the way I feel about it, then yeah, because you know what? In a way, I was financially raped, and I want full compensation.
Well,
so that's it.
Based on the length of time that you would be married or in a relationship with your partner, and how old the children are, and your wealth compared to hers, that's how it's determined. And in the case that we were speaking about, where this gentleman, I'm not sure it's the
same case, by the way. So
one of the cases that we spoke about that we're discussing here, the children were three of them. There were one was 21, and two twins were both 19, and he only discovered.
I was thinking of. I was thinking of a case where it was they were in their teens.
No, these are 19. The twins were 19, and the oldest one was 21. And none of them knew until that point. It was only when he had an illness that he had to go to hospital, and they found out that there was no way he could have fathered children. He just couldn't have done from birth. And so he confronted his wife. She then at first said, no, they're your children. But then later she broke down and said she had an affair for 4 years during the early part of their marriage.
Oh, there are far more recent cases, and they're more pernicious because these ones are planned. These ones are the cases of women.
Look, I'm with you. I personally think that it's wrong and it should be a criminal offence. Of course it should. But the thing is, in the case, the story I'm discussing, he took his wife to court. And she was ordered to pay a hefty amount. Now, granted, she wasn't earning anywhere near as much as he was. And he'd paid a lot of money towards the children and to keep the upkeep, because they separated after that. He paid money towards the children and decided, no, I'm not doing this anymore. They're old enough. And he wanted to get his money back. And he got, I think, about £250,000 back, which was a considerable amount. Dollars, sorry, which was a considerable amount. But that wasn't the whole amount. So she was accused of breaking the law. Clearly she was, but it wasn't the full law? Actually, that's a good point. I didn't check what law it was that she broke, but she clearly lost in the court case, so something must have been.
That wouldn't be breaking the law. That would have been a civil action. So the courts would just that would have been civil action. But what we're talking about is criminalizing it. So not only do you have to pay back, which is the criminal liability, but you also have to end up in court. In prison, which is, I would want a situation where, as we move away from a gynocentric society, more towards a more masculine society that we bring back this kind of harsh punishments, and we throw the woman in prison for 20, 25 years.
I wouldn't put it to that high, but you would. I mean,
Well, we'll
I'm
start off with
actually,
that. Yeah.
I'm actually agreeing with you that this is something that shouldn't just go, you know,
No.
undone,
So
because otherwise people will
more
abuse it.
modern cases
Yeah.
are of women who have multiple partners. They know which one they. I don't know how they know.
How do they know? How do they know?
I suppose they know when the periods ended. I suppose. Or something like, I don't anyway. So but they've got a very good idea of who the father is, but they want one specific one, or one who's already pregnant and then tries to pass it off on somebody who's wealthier.
Right. Yes, that's clearly wrong.
So why don't we criminalize it? So I mean,
Well, the other
you can
way
ask your
of
question now. Then I'm ready to
the other
answer.
way of fixing a lot of these is every child that's born has to have a
Automatic,
paternity
yeah.
test.
Do you know what? Not even that, but just fantastic. Automatically, every child is born. Do you know what? I like that a lot. I like that, and that's a very modern solution to a very modern problem. Just straight off.
It
That
takes
is,
away the doubt immediately at that time.
I think the fathers should. No. What about the father who has consented? You don't need
Then
to
they
do
don't
that.
need to. But
They don't need
it
to.
should be available to everyone.
Or maybe we just do it anyway.
Okay.
And it's.
But then they don't need to know.
No, they need to know, but they don't. But nobody else needs to know.
Okay.
So the records are sealed, unless the father has been cuckolded, in which case you can say, in case she does it again, people need to know that she's tried to do this before. It won't matter. It won't matter because every child she has.
Yeah, it would be depending on who it is. Yeah,
So
it's
that's
unique.
it. So yeah, I think for all children that are born, automatic paternity test, and the supposed father is informed whether this is or not. Great.
Wouldn't it need to be I know it sounds a bit odd, but in this day and age of surrogate mothers, would you have to do that for the female too?
Well, you remember my joke from last week? Was it?
No.
Did I ask you the joke from last week?
I hope not. You don't bring it up again.
Huh?
What was the joke from last week?
What did the
Can't
blonde?
remember.
What did the blonde say? Is this baby really mine? Yeah, I think surely a woman would know. I mean, we would
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
if it came
you'd
out
have
of a
thought so,
tummy,
but I'm just thinking for, yeah, you're right.
If it comes out of a tummy, you're fine. If it doesn't come out from a tummy, then we already know that whoever's tummy comes out from, it's the mummy.
Yes,
Yeah?
indeed.
Yeah, so
Indeed.
yeah.
Okay, look, I'm mindful of the time here because we're reaching the top of the hour, so we really need to sum up. So, what's your take on this? Should we criminalize cuck-holding?
Well, I was going to say yes, and very, very definitely yes. But you've come up with a solution, which is perfect. There's no need to criminalize it because we really shouldn't ever have a situation where we have a cuckold. So
It would save a lot of effort, a lot of money,
saves a lot of palaver.
Yeah, it would.
Part and parcel of paying for the maternity
Yeah.
thing in the hospital. Part and parcel of that is a paternity test. It's automatic. It's done. Boom. End of story.
Agreed. That would solve a lot of problems. But if that isn't something people are willingly want to bring in, then
this is democracy,
yes,
man. Who cares what the people want?
Well, then we should criminalize cuck-holding. Of course we should, because it is abuse of
on a grand scale that can affect so many lives over such a long period of time.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Thank you for that. Right. Unfortunately, we have reached the end of the show for another week.